10 is talking about inheritance. خليني أسألكم الأول، الناس كلها هنا موجودة؟ يعني لو كله موجود مش محتاج أعمل recording. If you want me to speak in Arabic وتكتبوا notes معايا. If you want me to record the session يبقى هضطر أعملها recording و I will speak in English. ف it's your call. What would you like to do? Okay, someone said something here. خليها من غير تسجيل. كل الناس من غير تسجيل يا جماعة. كل الناس من غير تسجيل. يعملوا yes or no. يعني لو في no يبقى هسجل and we speak in English. الكل مش موجود يبقى خلاص، يبقى نعملها تسجيل. طيب خلاص اتفقنا. يبقى أنا هعمل recording دلوقتي. طب هو ليه ندى مش كله مش موجود مع ان دوت الميعاد بتاع السيشن بتاعت الهيلث ساينس؟ يعني هو ده احنا مش طالعين بره الميعاد. المفروض الناس كلها تحضر. This is really weird يعني. Recording started. Let's start right away. احنا عندنا chapter 10. This is today is a revision for chapter 10 and chapter 12 to prepare ourselves for the midterm exam. Okay. Chapter 10 is talking about inheritance. Again, always make sure after you study your chapter, I already mentioned how you study. First, you read the chapter from your book. Second, okay, you listen to the recorded video, okay, in order to make sure that you have understood every part in your chapter. Then you read the summarized chapter in your PowerPoint. So these are 3 steps, okay. Of course, while listening to the recorded video, there's sometimes we are writing some code. So in that case, you will have to look also up the code that I have uploaded for you. Most important, in the code, I have also always written some comments in the code. Okay, either using the backslash the double slash comment, or using the double the slash or star and comments. So either using the single line comment or multiple line comments. By all means, both comments are very important. Both comments give you not only explanation of the code but also some hints about some information that you might be asked about in your midterm exam. Okay? Type. Now, لما نيجي نبص كده for the chapter goals, you need to know to be able to understand all these points, because these are the points that you will be asked about. First, learning inheritance. Now, then how to inherit one class from another class. We said using the extends keyword, and how to override superclass methods. Okay, you need to be able to know and understand how you can invoke superclass constructors. Okay. Also learn about the protected and package access control, and to understand the common superclass, which is the object. We said that the object is the superclass for the Java class hierarchy, and how to override its method. The method is we have the toString method, and we have the equals method, and also we have the clone method. Don't forget the clone method. You might be asked about them. Okay. And then the graphical user interface. All right. Now, as we go, now slide 4, which is the inheritance in hierarchies. This shows you the inheritance hierarchy for some classes in the Java library system. Make a mark that this slide is very important. You might be asked about it. Okay. About what exactly? Here, we know that we have something called J component in the this is the graphical user interface. Okay, J component, and has get width and get height. This is the superclass for the J panel that we have shown you in the code before. The J label, J test component, and the abstract button is also a superclass for 2 types of button: J button, J toggle button, etc. So please make sure that you know this diagram very well. Okay, type. We can continue. And again, without repeating myself, you need to be sure that you are always answering the self-check questions. Learn them and study them very well. Okay? Right. Now, I will mention as we go a couple of important points for chapter 10. Now, you need to know the following. A superclass, we know that the superclass is always the general entity. So if I want now to have, so these two things are very important now. Just a second. Yes. The superclass is more general, while the subclass is specialized class. Okay? So if I have now a case study, or I have having a question that asks me, if you have a couple of classes, okay, for which you have some common behavior, so where will you include this common behavior? I will include it in the superclass, which is the general class. Now, if I'm asked if you have some classes and each class has some special properties and behavior, then I cannot have a superclass for them. Each class will have its own behavior. So again, superclass is more general, subclass is more specialized, and the subclass inherits the more general behavior from its superclass. Is that clear, everyone? Which one is general and which one is more specialized? Is that clear, everyone? Okay. Then we can continue. So as we go, I'm making some points. We already mentioned the hierarchy of the G component class, so please make sure that you know that the slide 4. Okay. Okay. Also, an important thing we know, or we have seen, how can we extend? How can we inherit from a class? We use the keyword extends. This is something that we all know. Now, one question. Okay, if I'm saying now bank account, savings account extends from the class bank account. Okay, now I know for sure that the savings account now is a subclass and the bank account is a superclass. All right, a question here. Does the class that is called savings account inherits also from the superclass objects? A question for you. I know that savings account, we have said explicitly that it extends the object, extends bank account. Here we go. This is my my week 2 code. Here I have bank account, and here I have savings account. I said here that the savings account extends the bank account. So bank account is superclass, savings account is subclass. The question is, I know that I have one common superclass for all Java classes. It's called what? It's called the object class. Do you remember that? You remember that? Okay. Now my question is, does the savings account here inherit from also from the object class? Does it also inherit from the object class? Question, yes, Umniya, yes, everyone. Why? In this case, savings account inherits indirectly from the object class. How? I will show you the slide right away. We had some slide here. Here we go. The object class is the most common class for all Java classes. It's the superclass for all Java classes. Bank account inherits from the class object. Okay. Savings account inherits from the class bank account. I haven't said that savings account extends object or anything, but by default, since bank account inherits from the class object, then savings account also inherits the same behavior from object. So in that case, savings account is what? It is inheriting all properties and behavior from the object class indirectly. Okay. What about the bank account? Now, a second important note here. If make my case here bank account, public class bank account. I haven't mentioned here the keyword extends, right? Extends, for instance, object. I don't need to mention it. So an important note, for any class that does not have the extends keyword, all right? So this means that this class already directly inherits from the object class, all right? Is that clear? So any class that has no extends keyword, it inherits from the object class directly. So now we have two options. All classes in all Java classes inherit the behavior properties of the object class either directly or indirectly. And by all means, I don't need to put the keyword extends object in any case. Is that clear for everyone? Is that clear for everyone? Okay, perfect. Now, note number 4. Okay. Now, we have agreed already. By the way, note number 4, you need to make sure that in this example that is called bank account, savings account, checking account, you need to make sure that you already know this example very well, okay? Because you might be asked very simple questions about about any of the methods. So make sure that you know them all very well. It's very easy. We have done them together, so make sure that you know every single thing about it, okay? This is one thing. Second thing, important. Now, as a subclass, what do I inherit? As a subclass, what do I inherit? The subclass inherits all methods, okay, and instance variables and class variables from the superclass. So the subclass inherits everything from its superclass, okay? Now, a question is, do I inherit even private instance variables? So if you remember, in the bank account class, we had something called balance, private double balance. Question is, do I inherit private instance variables? Huh? Yes or no? Yes, but I need a method to access them. Perfect answer, ya Umniya. Dalal, yeah, this is the perfect. Yes, exactly, Afnan. Okay, now you need to differentiate between two things. I do inherit the variable, okay, but I cannot have access to it. So in case when I say private double balance, for sure in the savings account I can access now. I already inherited the balance variable, but can I use it directly? No. In order to use it directly, so in order to use a private instance variable or any private variable, okay, private field in my superclass, I need to use a public method, okay, defined where in the subclass or in the superclass. So as we did here, I inherited the balance, but I cannot have access to it because it is private. So what shall I do? I will use a public method defined in my superclass. In that case, the deposit, the withdraw, the get balance, all these have access to can give me access to the balance variable. Is that clear, everyone? Is that clear? Okay, perfect. Now I can continue. You see what I'm mentioning here? These are important things that you might ask me about in multiple choice, true or false. Sometimes they are confusing, so make sure that you understand them very well. Okay. Now, a second thing. Okay. What if here in my class bank account, I know that I have here a variable called balance. What if I come into the savings account class and I say private double balance? Now, will I have any error? No, because I'm actually defining a new variable that is called balance in my savings account. But what will happen? What will happen? Now, if I want to say, for instance, in the method that is called public void add interest, and then I say double interest equals get balance. Now the get balance returns what, girls? The get balance returns the balance value, right? Now, which balance now? Will it call the balance that is defined in my class in the savings account or in the bank account, which is called balance? Okay? Now this is a problem, although I don't have here a compile time error, but I will have I will make the Java runtime confused. It has now two variables. You know what this means? This means shadowing variables. Okay, so the shadowing means here that I am defining a variable that has the same name as the one in the superclass. That has the same name in the superclass. So what will happen now? I have a problem. Someone will tell me I have no problem actually, because this balance, as we do in the methods, will override this balance in the bank account. No, this is not true. We cannot override. Make sure that you understand that we cannot override instance variables. So I cannot override the variable that is called balance in my superclass. I still inherit it. And again, I have another balance that is called variable that is called balance in my subclass. So I'm making here confusion. This is what we call shadowing variables, shadowing instance variables. Is that clear? So please avoid that. Okay? So this is in case if you're asked, for instance, what if I have a variable that has the same name in my subclass and the superclass? What will be the result? A result will be shadowing. Okay. Now, is that clear, everyone? Is that clear, everyone? Okay, perfect. Then we can continue. Now, what about the method? We said already I can inherit Can you hear me? I think because we lost connection. Okay. Now, regarding the methods inheritance, again we said as a subclass I inherit from my superclass all methods. Okay, the methods, the instance variables, and the class variables. When I say class variables, this means what? This means even the static variables. When I define something, a variable as static, so I inherit everything. All right? Now, in case of methods, I have here in the bank account class, I have here deposit. So make sure you know what you are inheriting and what you are adding. Now, in case of bank account, I have now balance, the variable balance. So this I'm inheriting. I have three methods: deposit, withdraw, and get balance, and transfer. So when I go now to the savings account, which method do I inherit? I'm inheriting all methods: deposit, withdraw, get balance, and what was the last one? And transfer. Okay. Now, what about if I need another method? So I can just easily add another method. In my case here, public void add interest. So the add interest method is what? Is only defined in my subclass. Does the superclass have access to the add interest method? This is a question. Does the superclass bank account have access to the add interest? No, it is only special for the savings account. Yes, exactly. Now, so I have now added a method that is, so whenever I want to add a new method, I will add it in my subclass. Now, what if I want to change a method that I have inherited it? So in that case, I go to the checking account class. This is what we did here. We said, in order to change the deposit method, what do I need to do? I have to define it. Now, please make sure when you define this method, when you want to change a method that you have inherited from your superclass, make sure that it has the same name, so deposit, same output, void, same modifier, public, and same parameter, double amount. if you just change this double to int, so this means that you're defining a new method. Is that clear? So it has to be the same type of parameter and the same number of parameters. And also, of course, the same output and same method name. And then inside the method, you can change whatever you like. Is that clear, everyone? So in my case here, this is called overriding. I'm overriding the method that I have inherited from my superclass. So what if I define something like that? Public void deposit, okay? But this deposit takes, for instance, double amount, and also takes, like, for instance, in interest. So double I. And then I'm defining my code here. Question. Is that overriding the superclass method? No. Do we have another name? Someone will tell me it has the same name. Yes, but it has different number of parameters. So it's wrong. So this is not overriding. Actually, I'm defining here, defining a new method. Now, someone will tell me, can we have two methods that have the same name? Yes. What I did here actually is that I am, this is called what? Method overloading. So now in my checking account, so let's do it actually here also in my savings account. Here we go. In my checking account, I have two methods. A method that is called deposit, which I have inherited from my bank account class. It takes only double amount, okay? And another method also called deposit that takes two parameters. Now, will I have any error? No, not at all. This is called method overloading. So method overloading means I can have more than one method having the same name, but given what? They must have different parameters. Is that clear, everyone? Okay, perfect. So please don't get confused when you're asked about these things. Then we can continue. Okay. Now, in this method, in this class checking account, when we wanted to override the superclass method that is called deposit, in each method we had to use the trace count and increment it, and then we had to call again the deposit method of the superclass. Now again, make sure if I want to call the deposit method of my superclass, if I have to say explicitly that this belongs to the superclass. How do I say that? I will add the keyword super. Okay, if I delete this keyword here, super, and I will say public void deposit trace count, and then take the amount and put it in the deposit method. You see what's going on here? If I click on it, it will actually refer to the same deposit method that is defined in the checking account. So what is the output here? I will have here an infinite call of the deposit method, an infinite call of the deposit method. But in order to mention explicitly that it has to belong to the superclass, I have to say super dot. Okay. Now again, this is a very important question that you might be asked about. You might get something like that, and you're asked about where is the wrong part, or where is the for instance, if the super keyword is omitted, is that wrong or right? Or for instance, what would happen if the super is omitted? Whatever question is, but most important, you focus on that. Okay. What else? Okay, just a second, please. Yes, the invoking the constructor. Here we go. Invoking the constructor. Now, each class, we know for each class we have a constructor. For the bank account, here we go. We had a constructor, two constructors, an empty constructor that takes no parameters, and a constructor that takes a parameter. We said that by default, if we do not define any constructor for the class, if we do not define any constructor for my class, then the default constructor is the empty one. So if I just remove these two constructors like that, Then by default, the Java runtime will create a constructor for me here, or actually also the compile time will have a constructor for me here, which is the empty constructor. A constructor that has the same name of my class and doesn't take any parameters. Okay? But if I want to define a constructor explicitly like that one, like for instance the bank account here that takes a balance, then I will define it. In that case, the empty constructor doesn't exist. In that case, the empty constructor doesn't exist. So if I go now and make an object of bank account, here in the test for instance, and I will say now bank account A equals new bank account, it will create an error. Why? Because I'm calling now an empty constructor that does not exist. Why? Because in the bank account class I have explicitly defined a constructor that takes parameters. If this one wasn't there, like that, and I go back to the test, then it will refer to what? Here, no error anymore, to the default empty constructor. But if I put a constructor that takes parameters, then, and I want still the option to have the option to call an empty constructor, then I have to explicitly define explicitly the empty constructor, as we did here. All right. So now if I go back to the test, if I call the empty constructor, it will be called. It is already there. If not, if I want to call the field constructor, the one that takes parameter, here I'm passing it a value. Again, both are there. All right. Now, what about the constructor of the subclass? Here we go. In the savings account. Again, in the savings account is a subclass, so it needs also a constructor. To create the constructor, it has the same name as my savings account, and it takes now what? It takes a value. This value is initializing the variable that is called interest rate. Now, make sure that you know the following. The subclass always invokes its superclass constructor. Okay? But did I say anything here about calling the superclass constructor? No, we didn't. But by default, in the subclass, if I don't say call a certain constructor from the superclass, it will call the empty constructor of my superclass. So as if I said here what? As if I said super empty. As if I said here super empty. So this means that I'm calling the empty superclass constructor. If I write it or if I don't write it, I have no problem. By all means, it is invoked. Given what, girls? Given that this constructor is already there. Here we go. Okay. Now, what about the checking account? The checking account has also a constructor of the same name, and it takes a value. It initializes my balance. But who takes this initial balance? The constructor in the bank account. So in that case, I need to call which one? I need to call the second one, the second constructor that takes a value for the initial balance. So here we go. To call the constructor of my superclass, again I put the super keyword, and then I pass to it the value that it needs and do the rest of the code. Okay? Make sure that when you call the superclass constructor, it is always the first statement. So I cannot do that. Here we go. It cannot be the second statement. You see what happens? Error. It has to be always the first statement in a constructor. Okay. When I call the superclass constructor. All right? Is that clear, everyone? Is that clear, everyone? I can see 2 marks here. Is there a delay or is something is not clear? Okay, so now make sure that you know these points, please. All right? Okay. Now we can continue. Okay, the keyword that is called. Okay, just a second, please. Okay, the protected access. Now, we agreed before that in my classes, in all classes, I'm defining my instance variables as private. Why? In order to have something called encapsulation. And in order to access these variables from other classes, we use a public method that is defined in the class in which the variable is defined. We agree on that already. Now, and this is called what? Encapsulation. Now, what if I make my variable as protected? Here we go. Now, protected is another modifier. Protected means that my variable is only accessible for any other class that is within the same package. What I mean within the same package, I mean the same folder. You see here, for instance, I'm in folder week 2. This is a project. I have here a folder called SRC, and inside SRC, this is all my classes. So my package here is called what? SRC. Okay, so any class within the same package can access balance. If you go here to the savings account, and I say, for instance, anywhere balance, you see, just a second, save, and I say here balance equals, for instance, 100, whatever. Okay, I have no error. I can access it easily. All right. So this is the protected access. So it's only accessible to what? To all classes in the package, in the same package. Now, which one do we use? We still use the private, but you need to know what is the protected. Okay. Now, second thing. Okay, we need to know the casting. Now, in the test here, now, the casting between superclasses and subclasses. This is very important, girls. Okay, what is casting? Casting is meaning, it means converting from one object type to another object type. Okay, take it as a rule. Take it as a rule. I can always convert convert a subclass to its superclass. Again, I can always convert a subclass to its superclass, and this makes sense because the subclass already knows what's going on in the superclass. So because the superclass is more general, but I cannot convert. And this is why, by the way, the triangle is directed upwards here. So I can convert easily from a subclass to a superclass. So bank account can be of type object. Checking account can also be of type bank account. Savings account can also be of type bank account. Okay? But can I convert object to bank account? No. Can I convert bank account to checking account? No, because checking account is much more special than bank account. So I cannot easily convert it. But still, if I want to do this conversion from superclass to subclass by force, then I will use something called casting. Okay? So again, we go here. If I say now, savings account, college fund equals new savings account. All right? And then I go and define here bank account, AC equals college fund. And college fund is of type what? It's of type savings account. It's of type its type is the subclass. There is no error here. Why? I can easily refer from a bank account. I can easily convert the subclass, which is the college funds, which is the object of the subclass, to the bank account. Okay, is that clear, everyone? Is that clear, everyone? Now, to do the opposite, we need to do that by force. How come? By using casting. So, for instance, if I have now something like savings account, I will write it here right away. So this one is okay, we said. Now, if I want to say that say it the other way around, I would like to say that saving college funds equals AC. You see what's going on? It's an error. Why? I cannot convert AC, which is of type bank account, to an object of type savings account, which is the subclass. Here we say cannot convert from bank account to savings account. So what shall we do? I do the casting. Now, to which type shall I want to convert the bank account to savings accounts? Here, so here we go, savings account, okay? And then I have no error. So this is the casting. Is that clear, everyone? Okay, so please don't forget these things. Now I go back. We continue. Okay. Now a question. I have a very simple question. Can I convert all objects to the type object without a cast? Can I convert all classes in Java, the objects of all classes in Java to the type object? Question? I said yes. Oh, this is... Okay, I need to see the marks, please. Can I convert? No. Rouge, okay. Can I convert all Java classes to the to the type of object? Yes. The answer is yes, because we said what? We said that the object class is the superclass for all Java classes. So this means that any class I have in the library or any class that I am creating on my own, it's a subclass for object. So, and we said that we can easily convert from a subclass to superclass without casting. So, if I say here, for instance, object obj, alright, and I say, for instance, that obj is equal to college funds, I have no problem. Can I say obj is equal to AC? Yes, no problem. Is that clear, everyone? But can I say that object, if I want to call now the getBalance method, for instance, obj dot getBalance, can I see it? No. Why? Because this is a method that belongs to the subclass, and now it is converted to the superclass, which is object. Is that clear, everyone? Is that clear, everyone? Okay. Then we can continue. Okay. Now we go to the polymorphism or in inheritance. It's important for me to know to know that you understand the polymorphism very well. Okay. Now, polymorphism. When polymorphism comes, just you can see the word polymorphism, then first thing that comes to your mind is what is dynamic method lookup. Dynamic method lookup. Okay. For instance, here, when I said bank account, an account equals new checking account. What am I doing here? I am creating an object of checking account. And who is referring to this object? A variable called account, which is of type what? Of type bank account. Okay? Now, as we said before, this is no problem because I can easily convert from a superclass, which is checking account, to bank account. Then I will say an account dot deposit 1000. Now I have a problem. Okay? If I go to the checking account, if I go to the bank account first, there is a method that is called deposit, right? It just adds the amount to the balance. If I go to the checking account, I also have another method that is called also deposit, but in my case here, it's different. It increments the transaction count, all right, and then adds the balance. If I go back to the test class, now the question is here, when I say an account dot deposit, which method is called here? The one from the checking account or the one from the bank account? Very easy. I have a feature that is called dynamic method lookup. So the Java virtual machine, okay, will first locate the object I'm referring to. So it's not actually caring about the type of this variable. This type is bank account. But what is the type of the object that is in the memory? It is of type checking account. However, who is referring to this object? A variable that is of type bank account. So the Java virtual machine will locate first the type of the object in the memory. If it is of type checking account, then it will call the method that is called deposit from the class checking account. If it is of type bank account, then it will call the deposit method of the bank account. This is called what, girls? Dynamic method lookup. Okay, and again, this is part of polymorphism because I have now two classes, bank account and checking account. They have different behavior, but I'm treating them the same by calling the same method. Okay, another example for polymorphism here is the one that we have explained before in the transfer method. Here we go. We had a method called transfer in the bank account. It transfers an amount and from one bank account to another. So this means that I will pass two parameters: the amount that I want to withdraw from my account and the bank account that I want to transfer this amount to. So double amount and a variable of type bank account. Then I'm calling the withdraw method. I'm giving it the amount and the deposit method of which account or of which object of the other account object. So I'm withdrawing from this class, the one I'm in now, and depositing in another object of this class, the other account. Is that clear? Now, if I go back to the test, we have made a very simple example. We have created two types of accounts. One savings account and one checking account. And I want to transfer money from the savings account to the checking account. So we call the transfer method from the object that is called mom savings, which is of type savings account. So mom savings.transfer. What happened here? I'm giving the amount and the other account. So now this is polymorphism because actually the transfer method belongs to what? It belongs to the bank account class. But now I'm calling it from the savings account. Is that correct? Yes, it is correct because savings account is already a subclass and it inherits the transfer method. Second thing, I said that I will pass the amount and the other account, which is of type what here? Bank account. In my case here, I passed only checking account. Is that okay? Yes, it is okay because again, checking account inherits from bank account. So polymorphism here that I'm treating different classes having different behavior, the same name. I'm calling the same method, but I'm passing what? I'm passing the value to different classes that have different behavior. Given what, girls? What is the condition here? That I'm dealing with the subclasses of my superclass. Is that clear, everyone? Polymorphism and dynamic lookup. Is that clear? Okay, perfect. So now we can continue. The object class here. Again, the object class we set, it is the most common class in Java. It's also called the cosmic superclass, and the name of it is object. Okay. Now I said that all classes in Java inherit from this class. Inherit what exactly? Three main methods that we have discussed here. So you might be asked about them. Okay. What is the object class? What does it define? Or whatever. So you need to know the three methods that we have defined here. I have the toString method, I have the equals method, and I have the clone method. Okay? In order to use them, you just can call them. Okay? I can call my any class can be, for instance, when I said here in the beginning, I defined a couple of variables here. Okay, I can say easily college fund dot toString. You see, I can easily call it, right? Because I already inherited. Now, what is the toString method? As we agreed before, the toString method gives the string representation of my object. Now, what is the default string representation that is defined in my object class? It is the class name plus hash code. Just that's it. And if you run your program in your code in week 1, you will see it. It is just the class name plus the hash code. Now, what if I want the toString method to print different things? Okay. Here we go. So, for instance, in the bank account, in order to okay, perfect. So I can continue. Okay. Type. And you can see still my PowerPoint and my editor, right? My Eclipse. Okay. So we said what? In order to have a meaningful string representation, what shall I do? I will redefine it again in my subclass. So this means I'm overriding the toString method, which is inherited from my object class. So public string to string, and I return whatever I want here. Okay? That's it. So here now, if I want to print now, you see what here? What I have done here, I have commented it, so it's not overridden. So if I print, if I run my file, you see what's printed here? It's printing the string representation of the bank account here, so bank account and hash code. But if I want to print what I have just defined, so I will remove now the comment here and go back to the test class, and here we go. It will give me bank account balance, etc. All right, that's it. So I go now to I will comment it again. Now, what else did we learn? What else did we learn? We also learned about the second method, which is the equals method. Now, the equals method, what does the equals method do? The equals method, make a note, the equals method is designed to compare the contents of two objects. Is to compare the contents of two objects. How do we do that? Okay. The default equals method in the object class, it just compares what? The contents is what? In my case, it's the hash code and the class name. Okay. All right. If I want to make a comparison between the values in the objects, so for instance, here we go. If I want to compare between the value of the balance the balance value of two bank account objects, in that case we will use the equals method. All right. How is it written? Public boolean. Okay. So I will here remove the comment. So public boolean equals, it returns true or false. It takes a parameter of type object. Okay. So now if I want to compare two bank account objects, so I will now first the parameter that I'm having here is of type object, so I need to convert to bank account. To convert to bank accounts, I need to use the casting. So bank account EAC equals bank account OBG. Okay. Then I will make the comparison. If the balance in my bank account in the class I'm in now equals the AC.getBalance, then in that case it will return true. If not, it will return false. That's it. So in that case, I'm comparing which contents, not the hash code, not the name, but I am comparing the balance value. Okay? And now if I want to use it here in the test, I had a very simple example here. For instance, here we go. Bank account AC2 equals new bank account, and then bank account AC3 equals new bank account. Both have a value of 1,000. If I do the equals here, then it will print they are equal. Here, first bank account, because I removed the toString method. Here, that's the first bank account, second bank account. They are equal. Why equal? Because they have the same balance. Okay? Now the third method is what? Is the clone method. The clone method. Now what is the objective of the clone method? It makes a copy of my object with the same status. And here we go. Now, usually if I want to make a new bank account, so a bank account equals new bank account, all right? Now, if I want to create an account with the same value, the alternative is I will just say bank account, same copy I mean, equals new bank account, and it will take the same value. So now it's a copy, but make sure that it's a copy. Yes, copy meaning what? It has, sorry, I will call it for instance account 4 or something. A copy means what? It is a new object but has the same values. In my case here, the same balance value. But most important, it is a new object. Now, if someone does this thing, bank account 2 equals to account, this doesn't mean that I'm making a copy here. This means that I'm creating another variable called account 2, and it's referring to the same object that I have created in the memory, which is the new bank account 1000. So as if I am having two variables referring to the same object. So please note that this is not copying. That means that I'm just making a new variable referring to the same object. Okay? Now, if I want to do something like that, two accounts, two objects in the memory having the same values, then a shorter way is to use the clone method. Here how it is used. Account.clone. The clone method returns something of type object. So since it returns an object, it has to be casted to bank account, and I'm storing it into the clone into a variable called cloned account of type bank account. All right. Now, what is the error here? I said the clone method, which is inherited from the object class, we cannot use it right away. We have first to override it in my subclasses, okay, and declare it as protected, and then we can use it afterwards, okay. Again, by default, the object of clone method is declared as protected, so I cannot access it. It's not public. In order to be able to use it, I have to define it in my subclass. Okay, define it as public, and then I can use it. That's it. All right. Now, any questions? Everyone's following here? So we all know everything about the object class. Okay, perfect. Then we can continue. Give me 2 seconds, please. I need to make sure that okay, we're done with chapter 10 now, but with the exception of one topic, okay, something called, there are two special topics in your textbook, something called, if we can define abstract methods in my superclass, and also final methods. Please make sure to remind me to tell you that about the session tomorrow. Okay, no problem, okay? Please remind me to tell you that in tomorrow's session after we discuss the interfaces. I cannot mention these 2 points except after revising the interface chapter 9, all right? Now, chapter 12, it will take us only 5 minutes. It just takes to make sure that you know the following points. Here, chapter 12. Chapter 12 is mainly theoretical, so please make sure that you know every part of it. Okay? Here we go. First, make sure that you know the development process of any software lifecycle, these 5 phases. Learn them by heart. Done. Okay? Learn them by heart. Second, make sure each phase has a certain output. And in each phase we do something. So learn again by heart what we do in each phase. So don't get confused. Okay? Between the phases and each other. Make sure that you know what's going in each phase, and make sure you know the output of each phase. In the analysis phase, is the output is here. Design, the description of classes and diagrams, UML. Make sure that in the design phase you don't implement any code. Okay? You just plan. Implementation, the output is what? A completed program. In the testing, the output is what? Report. And in the deployment, the output is what? A program to be installed. So make sure you know that. Now, second thing. Make sure that you know the types of models. Okay? We have here the waterfall model. Make sure that you know what the waterfall model is and why is it sequential. Okay? Also make sure that you know the spiral model. And an important note here, in the spiral model, the design and implementation are always repeated. In the spiral model, the design and implementation are always repeated. Okay? Type. Now, 2 other examples, something called the rational unified process. I told you that you don't need to understand each single step in this process, but make sure that you know at least the names. So if you're asked about any of these names and where does it fit into spiral or waterfall or rational unified process, then you must know that this belongs to the rational unified process. Either this part, the inception, elaboration, construction, transition, or this part. Okay? Also, make sure that you know what is extreme programming. Okay? Make sure that you know what is extreme programming, what's it good for. Okay? So if any of these features you're asked about, where does it belong to? It belongs to extreme programming. All this belongs to extreme programming. Okay? All these features you need to know about them. And you also need to know that extreme programming is a spiral model, very important. And the spiral model focuses on prototypes. Don't forget that. All right? And an important note here is that the software life cycle, if you are asked about the life cycle, it starts with initial analysis and ends with what? Here, this is mentioned here. No one tells me it starts with analysis and ends with deployment. No. There are 5 parts of the analysis of the software development lifecycle, which we have shown here. Sorry, these ones. Okay. But when you say the whole life cycle, it starts from initial analysis until obsolescence. Obsolescence means here even after the deployment, even after installing and using the program now is done and obsolete. So make sure that you know this sentence. Okay. Also, what else? You need to make sure what CRC clause stands for, and why do we use it here? The CRC cards. Okay, what does it stand for, and why do we use it? Also, you need to know you need to know the following, that we said that in the CRC card we list all the classes we are collaborating with. You know this dependence, what type of relationship is that? Collaborating with, this is a type of relationship called dependency. So the CRC card actually shows me the classes on which I am depending. So it's a dependency relationship. We agreed that there is some 3 types of relationships, or actually 4 types of relationships between classes: dependency, aggregation, inheritance, and interface implementation. The CRC card shows me what? The dependency. This is important. Okay? And as I said, you need to know the type of relationships here. They are written in this. Yes, exactly, these ones. Okay? And the UML notation for each relationship, and also the meaning. So inheritance means, here, it's mentioned there, in somewhere there. Inheritance is a relationship. Here we go. It is a relationship. Aggregation has a relationship. Okay? Dependency uses relationship. So make sure that you know the meaning of each relationship. Okay? Between classes. Also, you need to understand what aggregation is. Okay? A general form of aggregation is called association. Here we go. It's mentioned somewhere. A general form of aggregation means that a class has objects of another class. Like the example of mentioned here, this one, a vehicle or a car has tires. So this is an aggregation relationship. Okay? A general format for aggregation is called association. It's called association. Here we go. Association is a general form for aggregation. Important that you know that. What else? Now, in the design phase, okay, this is again the development process. The main one is that the one that we have discussed. But please make sure that you know the following. The last step in the design phase is what? Is that you document your classes. You document your classes and methods. You document your classes and methods. And what do you use in order to document your classes and methods? You use the Java doc. Okay? Someone will tell you that we haven't yet written or implemented our code. Yes, but what you do is that you write you create your Java files. You just write the class names. You just write the method signatures. The method, you leave an empty body. It's not even the signature. You just the method name. What is the input, the output, and an empty body. And over it you put your comments. And then you use the Java doc to create your documentation. So the last final step is you document your classes and methods in the last step in the design phase, that you document your classes and methods. Okay. Also, a very nice note here. During the implementation phase, okay. If I have now the example of aggregation, this one here. Public class car extends vehicle, okay. So the car inherits from the vehicle. The car has tires, so private tires. So I have now created an array called tire, an array called tires, and it is of type tire. Now, the aggregation relationship has been translated here into what? Can someone answer me? The aggregation relationship has been translated in here into what? The aggregation relationship between car and tire is translated here into what? Into it's I cannot see your answer, Omnia. I don't know why. Okay, I was just saying it's translated into instance fields. Yes, okay, Omnia, yes, you're true, it has a relationship, but what I mean, it's translated into what? Into the code. The has relationship here, which is the aggregation relationship, it's translated into what? Into the code, into instance fields. Because what? Now I have now an instance variable called tire of type what? Of type the class tire. So have you noted that? Is that clear, everyone? So the aggregation relationship is now translated into an instance field. I have now an instance variable or instance field called tire, which is of type. I can make it a bit more easier, and maybe okay, I cannot edit it actually, but name it whatever X, Y, Z. Most important is it's of type tire. Okay. So aggregation is translated into instance fields in the code. Also, okay, when in the textbook this is mentioned, okay, when you start implementing your code, if you have something like that, okay, what is the best way to implement your code if you have 3 classes now? The best thing to do is to use a bottom-up approach. The best thing is to use a bottom-up approach, meaning what? I'm beginning with classes, okay, that don't depend on others. So, in my case here, I will do what? I will have the vehicle class. So this class doesn't depend on anyone. So I'll create the vehicle class, right? Then I will also create the tire class. This class also doesn't depend on anyone, tire. Then I will create the car, which depends on the vehicle and also depends on the tire by using the aggregation relationship. So again, in order to implement my class diagram that I have designed in the design phase, I use a bottom-up approach, beginning with the classes that don't depend on each other. Is that clear, everyone? Okay. Now, one final thing to be said about chapter, two actually final things. First thing is, you need to understand what is the main goal of object-oriented design here. We said that in this chapter we have 5 phases, and we focus mainly on the object-oriented design phase. The main goal of the object-oriented design phase is that you discover problems in this design phase, while they are still easy to correct. Again, imagine that after analysis, what I did just right away implementing the code. So if I wouldn't be able to discover the errors early in order to fix them. So the main goal of object-oriented design is to discover problems in the design phase while they are still easy to correct. Okay? And final thing, the state diagram, which is in you have here a case study of the ATM machine. Okay. Where was it? Here we go. Now this is a different diagram. Okay. Again, the state diagram is another feature provided by the UML. The state diagram, when you want to explain the flow of your program, so you will say, for instance, here start, and then the customer will do this and this and this. What you're using here, you're using rounded rectangles, and you are using rounded corner rectangles, and you are using solid arrows. Okay, that's it. So make sure. So the state diagram, what does it explain? It explains how you move from one state to another in your program. How you move from one state to another in your program. Okay. And also make sure that you, as I told you, you know the UML notations for each relationship. Okay. That's it. Now we are done. Okay. And also one thing in the design phase, before you design your solution, now we know that last step or the final step in design phase is to write the documentation of the discover classes and methods. Now, before you begin the design phase, okay, what shall you do? You are in the analysis phase. So you gather and document all requirements for the program in plain English. So in the analysis phase, you have done what? The output is that you have gathered all documents and requirements from the user in what? In plain English. In the design phase, you have documented your discover clauses and methods using the Java doc, and also you have drawn your diagrams using the UML. So the first, in the analysis, it is plain English. After the design phase, it is in using Java doc and UML graphs. We are done now. I think we can stop. Before we stop recording, any questions regarding the two chapters? Have you made notes of everything? Okay, perfect. So thank you very much. I will stop recording now.
Recording stopped.
Okay, we are done كده النهارده يا جماعة. هشوفكم بكرة إن شاء الله. Thank you very much. شكرا يا أمنية. هشوفكم بكرة إن شاء الله في الساعة كام عندنا الفيس تو فيس بكرة؟ من 4 ل 5 بكرة الأربعاء من 4 ل 5 صح كده؟ ده الاي تي. وبالنسبة للمجموعة الثانية الهيلث ساينس هشوفكم في الفيس تو فيس إن شاء الله. اوكي، شكرا لكم يا جماعة و good luck with your exams. و again don't forget the assignment بتاعت يوم الخميس. It will be submitted يوم الخميس إن شاء الله عشان I don't want you to lose any points إن شاء الله.